Yeah, so I'm going to be starting to do a little bit more daily. We'll take 10 minutes and just chat in the mornings and get a chance to interact and connect with you guys. Hopefully, you guys like it. I don't see anybody on here yet, but hopefully, we'll get some chats and some questions, and I'll be happy to answer as we go along. So, yeah, today our discussion is about the Saints and how they plan to attack the offseason. I know we still have a game against Atlanta this Sunday, and obviously that will impact the playoffs. We may have games after that. But I just want to kind of get into quickly what we're looking at in terms of the cap and which players are most likely to stay, which ones would go, and how that would affect the 2022 season. So what I see pretty clearly right now is as you're looking at the Saints players, it's really clear to me that Taysom Hill, David Onyemata, Ryan Ramczyk, Alvin Kamara, Marshawn Lattimore, those names that I just mentioned, those guys are all going to get restructured. We're talking about 5 players, and that will get the Saints down. And remember, they're about $60 million over the cap going into the offseason. Restructuring those 5 deals alone, again, Taysom Hill, Onyemata, Ramczyk, Kamara, Lattimore. Those 5 players alone will give them a savings. They'll get them pretty close to about 40 million in savings. And so that leaves you about 20 million left. And these are approximate numbers, but the next move is pretty clear to me. It's that you cut Bradley Roby. That will give them 9.5 million in savings. And so that gets them pretty close to being cap compliant. They're roughly about, they would have about $5 to $10 million left. And then what you can do from there is you can trade Marcus Davenport. That saves you $10 million. You could add ghost years to his deal to move that over 3 years. And that would shorten, that would extend how expensive he is later. But you would get some savings in 2022 to be cap compliant. So those are just some moves that the Saints will likely make in order to be cap compliant. And then from there, obviously, they need to create more space. One player in particular that's going to be really interesting is Terron Armstead. Currently, his deal expires, but because of the way they restructured his deals, he is owed $13 million against the cap, despite not being on the team. So one option that the Saints would have would be to extend him and give him a new deal. Now he's 31 years old. Obviously, he's injured right now, and he has a history of injury. So that's the big question mark. Do you give a guy like Terron Armstead a big new deal when you realize the injuries and the fact that he's aging? But you have to consider the fact that he's costing the Saints $13 million right now against the cap. And that's without being on the team. So if you give him a new deal, then you're in a situation where he's a lot less expensive. You're closer to being cap compliant, and he stays on the team, and hopefully he can stay healthy. So obviously the Saints are going to have to negotiate with Armstead, but there's a lot of reasons to keep him based on their cap situation and the fact that he would be cheaper on the team versus off of it. The other players that you have left that are very expensive to the Saints are Michael Thomas, Cameron Jordan, Demario Davis, Andrus Peat. Those 4 in particular, you could do something to their contracts, but I think this is where you want to be really careful with those 4 players in particular. With Michael Thomas, he's just coming off an injury. Obviously, there's been some turmoil interpersonally with him. And so the problem with restructuring these deals is they get more expensive in the future and they get more difficult to eject from if you want to get rid of the player. And so I'm not saying the Saints want to get rid of Michael Thomas yet. Obviously, we want to see him come back on the field, rehab his injury, and hopefully get back to the player that he was. But the concern with Michael Thomas, obviously, is that it's become kind of combustible. And so maybe you want to leave that contract alone. Cam Jordan, he as of late, obviously you want to keep him. He's looked great, but he is 33 years old, and he's showed some signs of declining up until the last 3 weeks. So to me, that's one where you have to be, again, very careful. Demario Davis, he's 33 years old. If you extend him, if you restructure him, it gets more difficult to get out of that contract in the future and more expensive. So that's another one you have to be careful about. Andrus Peat, obviously, he's been disappointing. I don't think he's lived up necessarily to his contract status. And on top of that, he's been out for the year with an injury. He has injury history. So to me, Pete's a guy that maybe you would want to get out of that contract in 2023. So that's another one where I think potentially you stay away from editing it for now. So, but it's pretty easy to get cap compliant, and obviously, as I said, ghost years is an easy way to get some savings from a lot of these guys. Just quickly, they can save about 1.5 million by restructuring Will Lutz. I haven't talked about Malcolm Jenkins yet. That's another big one. The Saints can save $4 million by cutting him pre-June 1st. They can actually save 7.75 million by cutting him post-June 1st. So I do think Malcolm Jenkins is maybe the Saints would approach him if he wants to continue to play. He is 35 years old. Would he consider retiring? That's one thing. Jerry, good morning to you. Thanks for the message there. Yeah, if you have any questions, drop them in the comment section. I'm probably going to do this for about 10 minutes, and happy to interact with you guys. Yeah, so I think what you're looking at with Jenkins is a question of would he want to come back, and if so, would he be open to taking a price cut? If not, I think he is a good cut candidate, especially when you look at the roster and the replacements that you have internally, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, and guys like that, they could fill in for him. So, next is the free agents, and really the big ones are Marcus Williams, and he's going to be expensive. He's going to be a tough one to keep, but the Saints love him, so that'll be interesting to see. I don't see the Saints keeping both Marcus Williams and PJ Williams. I think one of them will walk. PJ Williams has had a great year, and I think he's made enough strides in his game, and he's shown that he could play the free safety position to where now I think he will garner some interest and get a long-term deal from someone in the offseason. He'll get a better contract than these one-year deals that the Saints keep giving him. So PJ Williams, I don't think he and Marcus Williams will stay on the Saints. The Saints will have to decide whether to go cheaper and let Marcus Williams go, but go with PJ Williams, or let PJ Williams walk and invest all that money in Marcus Williams. They can keep him, but it will be expensive. The next one's Quan Alexander. He's only 28 years old, but obviously he's had a ton of injuries. He's played really well this year. And so maybe that's a guy that can garner some interest in free agency, but we'll just have to see. And obviously, the other big two, we talked about Terron Armstead, and then Jameis Winston is the other one. Jameis Winston's recovering from a pretty significant knee injury. He played well before that knee injury, so I don't know what that does in terms of team interest league-wide and what kind of contracts he would get offered. But that's going to be another interesting one to watch. So, yeah, as you look at right now, the free agents – those would be the main ones. I mean, you have some guys like Shai Tuttle. He's a restricted free agent. Carl Granderson's exclusive rights. Deontay Harris is a restricted free agent. And then there's some other guys. But really the main ones that you want to look at, obviously, Terron Armstead, Jameis Winston, Marcus Williams, PJ Williams, and Quan Alexander. I think that group is really what you want to look at as the free agents, where the Saints will have to make decisions on, can we keep these guys? Do we want to make offers? So it'll be interesting to see how they go. We'll go from there. I know, Jerry, you had a question real quick about my thoughts for the Saints. Do they win Sunday, and do we get a 49ers loss? I mean, that's what Vegas thinks right now. The Saints are favored to win their game, and the Rams are favored to beat the 49ers. So if you're a betting person, Vegas is saying that will happen. I would say that, look, the Rams have everything to play for. They need a win, wins them the division. If they lose, they could lose their division and end up being a wild card. So I think it's pretty critical for them to win that game. And I believe that they will. They're at home. They have bad history against the 49ers. It's a bad matchup for them, but I think they're going to find a way to win that game. So I'm more confident about that than I am about the Saints. The injury report for the Saints is a little bit scary. So we'll have to see how that goes on Friday today and what the report looks like. Hopefully it looks a little bit better. But I am pretty confident in this weekend. I think the Saints get it done. I think it's going to be a tough game, but Atlanta doesn't have anything to play for, and the Saints are trying to make the playoffs. So I think the Saints will have better intensity. It's going to come down to protecting the football, though, as always. But anyway, thanks for joining me. We had a few people. Jerry, appreciate the question. We're going to start doing this more consistently, so hopefully we'll get a chance to interact some more. But this has been a 10-minute chat on the Saints offseason. We'll be talking about that, obviously, plenty more. And thanks for joining me.